So love is actually quite a big topic, and it is not just about the heart opening and having passion. It actually involves all the organs in Chinese medicine. So I don't know how to condense it, but firstly, love is pretty intrinsic to us as a human species. It's actually intrinsic to animals or things that are full of life. When we're born, what's the first thing that happens? We're probably embraced by our mothers or parents or whatever, family. So we get to interact with the world as soon as we're born through love. It might not be verbal, it can be expressed. It can be the fact that someone's just cuddling you and giving you attention and looking after you. The babies should have, it would be nice if the baby could just experience love in its purest form as soon as it's born. And regardless of how we manifest as we grow older, it still becomes, it's so deep-rooted that everything we do is somehow connected to looking for that love or finding that love. And unfortunately, what happens with many people is they become disconnected and they start to have belief systems of separation or lack of love. Yeah. So unfortunately, in our society, there's many people that feel left out. Yeah. And don't understand the concept of love. And we all project what our versions of love shall be. So that we have, you know, for instance, the romanticized version of love, which we see on TV and the movies and social media, and it's pumped through us. And so a lot of people associate love as being sexual or lustful love, but that's not the only kind of love. In actual fact, it's not a love. It's actual just hormones and emotions. So interacting with us, believing that that is love, but it is a desire to bond, right? It is a desire to bond with something else and go outside of ourselves and extend ourselves to someone or something.
Yeah. So really you're talking beyond the physical concept, but you're talking highly about the emotional and the internal soul connection almost, if you want to get spiritual about it, because you can seek that connection with anything. It could be with having a pet. It could be with, you know, a family member. It could be really with anything, couldn't it?
It can be. And it can be just that all of a sudden you just feel so connected with life.
Yeah.
And you just have this expression of love that just can come out of you. I remember once I was driving down the west coast of Canada in British Columbia, and I was watching the sunset. And it was just so beautiful. I just felt my heart open. So it can be just an experience of love. I just felt connected. I just felt that the world was beautiful.
Yeah.
So, you know, it quite often it is a person that you feel that feeling of wanting to connect, of wanting to open, of wanting to feel the love or express the love. But it can be other things as well.
I really like that translation of how you experienced that when you saw the magnificent, I'm assuming there were Alps, magnificent scenery of Canada, and just watching that sun. I too have been to Canada, and you do experience that. It's almost like a euphoric feeling, isn't it? That connection that you have with this wonderful planet that we're living on. And yeah, like you said, that can be translated as love as well. The love that you have for your home and your planet and all the things around you, that shared space.
Yeah, so there's many aspects of love. There's obviously self-love, which is very important, because if you can't love yourself, you can't really experience love. You must love yourself in order to love other things. So a lot of people in our current world, unfortunately, don't feel that. They're very disconnected. And even people that are married, have children, in relationships, quite often that self-love isn't there. So that kind of love comes out of need.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily empowering. And it actually is a kind of a needy love. So self-love, I believe, is the most important thing.
So really come first before anything else.
Sorry, yeah,
That should come first before anything else.
yeah. So I mean, obviously, if you're not loving yourself, how do you really know what love is except through an expression of what someone gives you?
Yeah.
Love, the word itself, means that it comes from within. It's an emanation from you.
Right.
So if you don't love yourself, how do you know that you're emanating it?
Yeah. It makes perfect sense to put that first, so then you can experience it for yourself and then be able to impart that onto someone else or another living thing or whatever it is you then pass that on to, right?
Absolutely. And maybe that love, you might actually find that, for instance, your pet can bring that love to you. Some people don't connect necessarily to other humans, but then, for instance, I've just got a 18-month-old kitten, and it might be the spark that drives you to open your heart to feel love for
Yeah.
something. But usually what I find is most people need some sort of instigation in order to spark that love, whether it be an animal, a person,
Or an experience.
an experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And energetically, what that person or that pet or that experience is doing is making you go beyond yourself, and
Right.
it's moving the emotions of your body. It's moving the energy of your body so that you are expressing new things of wanting to open, wanting to bond with something or something else.
And then how does that sort of translate through a living aspect of wanting to do that daily, or whether it comes naturally or it's like you said, something needs to spark it to instigate it? How would it then translate through Chinese medicine if there's healing that needs to be there? I know that there's been a lot of talk in the wellness community that grief and suffering can really impact that whole emotional connection to love. So
There's no judgment on what kind of love that you choose to experience. I mean, let's just quickly go through them. So there's self-love, there's conditional love, which means you love someone because they give you something or they energetically make you feel a certain way. There's unconditional love, which is, for instance, what our parents might give us. Um, so there's altruistic kind of love, which is just a feeling of passion coming out. So there's several different types of love. There's sexual love and lustful love. They're all different aspects of love. So in order to understand love, love is an energy, it's an emotion, it's a vibration. So Chinese medicine is always looking at how that energy is moving. So you talked about grief. Grief, we say, is an kind of like governed by our lungs. You imagine if you're in grief, you kind of, gasping. That is the inability of our lungs to process that emotion. So
right.
in order to find balanced love, we always look at balancing the organs.
Right.
So balanced human is when all the organ systems are working well with each other.
Right.
Lungs not only govern grief, but it also governs boundaries. So if your lungs are weak, you might have really weak boundaries within a relationship.
Wow, that's really interesting.
And just to let you know, the liver is associated with rage and benevolence. So, for
Really?
instance, yeah,
Wow.
the toxic side of the liver, when it is not working well, is that your partner does something to you and you instantly fly into rage, and you might have an argument or something like that. But the nice side of the liver, when it is in balance, the benefits of having a balanced liver is benevolence and just being able to moderate your emotions and understand it compassionately
And not
from
cross over into rage.
yeah, not going into rage. But
Yeah.
the other thing with the liver is, for instance, governing how we interact with our partner. So, for instance, the liver is all about regulation of chi.
Yep.
So if your liver is blocked, you might not be able to express your energy towards your partner well.
Right.
You might do these, like I can see these texting rampantly and then ghosting, and then texting rampantly and then ghosting.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Right.
So that is like a liver that is out of balance.
Really?
Whereas, yeah. Usually though, when love relationships start, whether they are with your children or with another partner, there is always an aspect of the heart. So the heart is instigator of the emotions and the wanting to expand and open beyond yourself.
Right.
And then usually it goes to the brain.
Yep.
The brain conceptualizes it.
Yep.
And it actually brings out emotions in
Wow.
us. So what we think brings emotions out of us.
That's
and so
really interesting.
If we look at somebody and we find them exceptionally good looking and we want to have a sexual relationship with them, then it goes from our heart, that fire is stirred.
Right.
And that fire is telling our mind, hey, look at this person. I'm sending signals to your kidneys, which is the water element.
Right.
And it's stirring the sexual energy there, the wanting to have a sexual relationship, wanting to bond, the hormones which are created in the kidneys. So it's kind of like every organ affects each other organ, depending on the consciousness of your mind and also the heart, and how it directs energy through your body.
That's so interesting. So then how would the organs work when you express that with, for example, more the ecstatic love of a pet, or the euphoric moment that you felt in Canada? How would that sort of translate through the organs?
The heart is always associated with love and joy and passion.
Yeah.
If your heart is out, you would not want to express emotion. It's almost like a dead person, like they're energetically dead.
Right.
They can't, they're stuck in their shell, a bit like a zombie. Your heart must be touched.
Right.
In order to open. So, and obviously that goes to your mind, and the mind is just like, and for me, it was just being present in that experience, being very, very present.
Yeah.
So not necessarily, I've got to do something, but it was just a real opening. It can actually go in two ways. You can actually use that emotion, and you can use that to ascend to higher levels. It can stimulate your spirit and your shen, as we say in Chinese medicine, which is the highest aspect of love. But obviously, it can always go the other way. For instance, someone sparks something in you, you've got the emotion now, but then through you not wanting to look at yourself, or through conditioning, through parents, through culture and society, or belief systems, or through trauma, we may decide to use that stimulus of the energy in motion, the emotion, and we can use that in ways that are not necessarily serving the other person or yourself. So we can go into toxic habits.
Right.
All of these, when you go on social media, you hear of all these relationship advice and guys telling girls that they should be trad women or whatever. So there's all of this kind of, obviously there's energy moving, and there's always going to be that people wanting to manipulate that energy instead of just being present into it.
Yeah, so it's almost like there's a bit of a superficial layer to it as well, if it's consumed the wrong way.
Well, and emotion can always go in one of two polarities, into higher states of consciousness or into lower states of consciousness.
Yeah.
That's just as basic as it is.
Yeah, right.
So it gives us an opportunity to expand, or actually to use that energy and contract. Right. Quite often romantic relationships start with the passion, which is the heart and the kidneys working with each other, but that doesn't sustain usually. So quite often the other organs must come in to
Right.
establish a lasting relationship.
Right. Okay. So that's more the connection on a more emotional level. Like, how is it going to go beyond that? Yeah.
You can't be passionate for the rest of your life of
No.
sexually passionate.
No. It sounds exhausting, to be honest.
And let me just say that lasting love relationships, I should say,
Yeah.
does take work.
Yes.
It does take work.
Yeah.
And we live in such an instant society now.
Yes.
Doesn't work, we can swipe left, right?
Yes, I know. It's shocking.
So this is the age of our times where
Yeah.
it's disposable. So people will have to work at their willpower. They don't have to work at, if something doesn't serve, you can just ghost.
Yeah.
Swipe left.
Yeah.
What are all the new terms? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm so out of it. I wouldn't have a clue. But it does lead me to my next question. I feel like then there's a massive misunderstanding then of what love is, really.
It always has been.
Yeah.
But I actually think that or maybe not, because you could talk about the golden age and all that kind of stuff going hundreds and thousands of years into the past. But in our reality, it's always about trying to find out what that love and how to express that love, and that drives us, right? All our decisions are based on ultimately what we feel passionate. In actual fact, if you have no passion, you feel lost, right? The passion gives you the guiding star. You align yourself to the whatever. It gives you purpose. So if you don't have that, you kind of feel like a hamster in a wheel. Just kind of
going
round and round, not really achieving much.
So do you think that also could be how a lot of people have a spiritual connection to religion as well, because it's used through a love of something, a love that they found?
Absolutely. I think all religions teach love at some level. Love doesn't necessarily have to be at the passionate level. It can be at so many levels. So absolutely. The highest form of love is unconditional love. It doesn't matter. You're not waiting for some sort of gratification before you love somebody.
And I guess that's religion at its core too. Unless you have an individual, like you said, that is superficial and manipulates it to turn it into something else.
I mean, there's so many twists on what love really is. A lot of relationships, that's why there's so much divorce now.
Well, when it's funny you say that, because that brings me to my next question: lasting love. What sort of balance is required in order to maintain some form of lasting love, no matter what that love is affiliated with?
Well, first of all, you can have lasting love, but it's because it's mutually beneficial, but not necessarily a heart-based exercise.
Right.
My grandparents, actually, on my father's side, were arranged. And they married and had children, and they died with all their kids. Do you call that? I mean, it depends on how you define love. They developed love for each other, I would say. Did they love each other immediately? I doubt it.
No. Was it out of necessity, maybe?
It was a necessity, so it was kind of like each person played their roles, and they developed some sort of affiliation with the other person, whether it was love or not. I would say there was a caring, definitely. So how would we actually define love? mean, I think from what I understand, love is when you extend yourself to another person and you really want the best for them, and you do care for them, and you grow outside of yourself and you want to bond with somebody, right? So like we said, everything has to be balanced. So some people are happy to have relationships that are short term.
Yep.
But a lot of people are actually happy to stay in that honeymoon phase and just delete afterwards and go to the next honeymoon phase and repeat the whole condition again. But in order to have lasting love, you need to have everything in balance.
Right. And do you think someone that does cut it off and goes to the next thing, do you think that is an imbalance? Does that show that there's something not right?
Of course. I mean, if there's a serial person that keeps dating people for, 3-4 months, goes over the honeymoon period, and as soon as anything difficult happens, they dump, ghost, and then goes on straight back online. That does show that the heart is not really open, that the sexual is rampant, and there is no desire to look at themselves. I mean, but that's not necessarily wrong either.
No, it could just be they're happy that way, and that could be their version of self-love.
Well, well, I wouldn't say it's a true version of self-love.
No, but their version of it.
Well, it's like kids have to do what kids have to do until they grow up.
Yeah, right.
Do this for so long before, oh, okay, the next person, the next person, the next person, the next person, the next.
It sounds
I'm getting bored of this, kind of thing. And then, finally, I'm going to, and then finally they get a bit old and ugly. And then getting the next person, the next new supply might become a bit harder.
Yeah.
And then realise that they're actually a little, I'm going to swear, SHIT. And then maybe they have to look at themselves.
Yeah. Yep. And do a review.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes you see that with a lot of narcissistic relationships, right? Where narcissist keeps going to the new supply, keeps going to the new supply. Finally, they get old and ugly and nobody wants to be with them anymore.
No.
See these decrepit, ugly people, ugly as in their
on the not a physical sense, but on the inside.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned narcissism, because I was going to mention that, because they are obviously the victim of not being able to establish that long-lasting love, because them themselves are their own victim anyway.
The thing about narcissism is a deep, deep emptiness within themselves that cannot be filled. That's why they constantly have to use people for supply to validate who they are. Inflated ego and an inability to open themselves and see beyond themselves. So their hearts are definitely very, very closed off.
Right. And so how, if I'm not narcissist, because that's that's quite another conversation altogether, but someone that is not a narcissist but is still struggling with the idea and concept of love, what are some things that they can do? I know a lot of it's very internal, but if you're aware of it and you feel like there's something not right, what sort of steps could someone take to sort of work to letting it go and opening it up and sort of working towards sort of fixing it, basically?
I mean, obviously it's different for everybody.
Sure.
So everybody's journey is totally different, but usually you're suffering pain. Right. If you're feeling like that, right? You've gone through enough pain, you don't trust, you see the world as working against you. It always comes down to self-love first, because if you can't love yourself, you can't love. Okay.
Some form of emotional trauma could trigger that too, something from a childhood, maybe.
Of course, but we are powerful people and we can rise beyond extreme difficulty.
Yeah.
Because we are powerful and our minds are powerful and our minds are direct. So I would suggest, obviously you've just got to be open. Just start asking the question, what is self-love? What is self-love?
Yeah.
It's really good to slow the mind, because the mind gives us false realities, right?
Right. Yeah.
From the heart, the spark, we go to the mind. The mind thinks, I don't love myself, or I think I'm ugly, or nobody likes me. Okay, as soon as that thought hits your brain, so that you've got to monitor your brain and really understand how it is working against you. So slowing your mind, watching those thoughts is probably the first thing. So meditation would be great.
Right. Yep.
Or just instead of trying to force, I need to love myself, I need to love myself,
Yep.
slow that mind. And
Yeah.
one of
Okay.
the best ways to slow your mind is actually to breathe, watch your breath,
Really?
watch for that space in between your breath,
Yeah.
because that's when you don't think as much.
Right.
And to watch those gaps, your sense of the mind slows, which
Yeah.
gives you more inner peace.
Right. Okay.
I feel a bit like Kung Fu Panda, inner
Yeah.
peace, inner peace.
Yes, I know, but it makes sense. It's a good concept, even in the movie. You know, it's true.
Yeah.
If you don't find that, then how are you going to connect with it, right?
So absolutely. So slowing your mind, watching your thoughts.
Yeah.
And you'll find that inner peace. And in that inner peace, you are able to appreciate everything
Yeah.
just as it is.
Yeah.
There is no need to control anything, because as soon as you need to control anything,
Yeah.
you're creating a duality, a splitting of energy. If you need something to be a certain way,
Yeah.
you're breaking that calmness, okay?
Right.
Which is
Yeah.
fine. Part of life is about creating duality,
Sure.
okay?
But don't
Constantly
let it
going,
control you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when you have that inner peace, it's much easier to feel love
Right.
and to be love
Yeah.
and to express love, because you're
Yeah.
not trying to force anything.
Gosh, there's just, if you were right, you said it in the beginning, there are so many layers to this. There's so many problems in the world that have stemmed from the inability of having that love towards, whether it's the animals or nature or the world or other people, other cultures. It's the core foundation of everything, really, isn't it? Love.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It's a powerful tool to have. It's interesting that we're not really taught about it in life, are
No,
we?
no.
We experience it from our parents, or maybe not. Maybe you have parents that never really
Yeah.
cared or looked after you.
Yeah.
So how do you rise above that?
Yeah.